So we are in an exciting space, which is basically multi-language technology platform space, where a lot of transformation are currently happening, and a lot of brands as well as government already have realized the importance of communicating with their audience, engaging with their audience in the local language.
So absolutely, Jaideep. Since we started Devnagri 4 years back, then the market was completely different because that market was more about creating the awareness between the enterprises, between the government, and why there is a need of taking a shift and changing the orbit from English oriented or English dominated internet to purely a multilingual internet. So I think these things, last 4 years, the things have actually started getting changed, and even the government have already brought in a lot of initiatives in taking the content multilingual. And after government, enterprises have actually started getting this need of taking their communication into multilingual.
Welcome, Nakul. It is great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Jaideep. Thank you very much for having me on this show.
Great. So we are in an exciting space, which is basically multi-language technology platform space, where a lot of transformation are currently happening, and a lot of brands as well as government already have realized the importance of communicating with their audience, engaging with their audience in the local language. And this is the context of our today's discussion. So I'm delighted to have you on board as who will be able to speak better about this particular space other than you, who has been running Devnagari since its foundation 4 years back. And congratulations for the fourth anniversary. I believe you just celebrated, right? So let's dive in. I wanted to start with an observation, which is internet is largely still dominated by English content. A lot of brands still communicates in English, and interestingly, a lot of public institutions such as airlines, railways, as well as like banks still communicates with their audience and customers in English. Do you see any changes in the pattern since Devnagari has started, let's say 4 5 years back?
So absolutely, Jaideep. Since we started Devnagri 4 years back, then the market was completely different because that market was more about creating the awareness between the enterprises, between the government, and why there is a need of taking a shift and changing the orbit from English oriented or English dominated internet to purely a multilingual internet. So I think these things, last 4 years, the things have actually started getting changed, and even the government have already brought in a lot of initiatives in taking the content multilingual. And after government, enterprises have actually started getting this need of taking their communication into multilingual. So I think there is definitely a shift, be it the regulated industries, be it the banking or the healthcare, or even be it the railways or the airlines. So so changes are there in terms of communication from English to regional languages, because what is more important and what is actually required is the customer experience. So that is where the key focus is at the moment for the enterprises. And yes, there is definitely a change what we can actually see if I actually compare it with 4 years.
So let's step back and revisit this important agenda. Why should brand communicate in local language? I guess that's the fundamental thing, right? Considering that many of us anyway speak English and understand English, why should brands care or even government care?
Absolutely. So I think what is more important, and particularly in the regions like India, MENA, and Southeast Asia, what is more important is obviously the customer trust, the customer loyalty. In these particular regions, the language is not only for the use of communication; it is more of an identity kind of thing. So that is the reason I think when we actually start using multilingual, this can actually help in building lot of trust and lot of loyalty for the customers. So if I talk about the trust, then the regulated industries, be it the BFSI or be it the healthcare, where clarity in communication is very, very important. So that is where multilingual communication actually plays a very very important role for winning the trust. And when you actually talk about the loyalty, so loyalty, obviously, when a customer actually feels related, important, and obviously when a customer feels that he is understood, then that's where the loyalty comes, and that's where repeat transaction actually gets iterated. So this is the use of multilingual when it comes to winning the customer trust and loyalty. So I'll talk about a couple of examples as well. So one of the examples could be with the NBFCs. So this NBFC has actually adopted a multilingual way of talking to their end customers, generating their leads and qualifying their leads, and their business has actually grown up to 20%. So this is the power of multilingual, because obviously you can't just keep on talking to your end customers in English. You have to connect with them, you have to talk to them in their local language, so that they can also understand what you are saying. And that's where the next line of business comes from.
Got it. Yeah, no, that is true. Now, question is whether or not the brands are thinking, communicating with their audience in multiple languages on their native language, starting from zero, or is this in most often kind of an afterthought that, okay, I have thought the idea, I have thought the concept and everything in English, executed that probably in English, maybe in Hindi in India as well. But then there are, as we know, 20 plus major regional languages are there which are actively spoken in India, right?
Yeah.
So do you see most of that are like afterthought, or our brands you see are actually thinking ground up, what we call as localization? That means keeping local context, not just the language, but the tone, the culture, the food, the voice, everything, right? While they're thinking of a marketing campaigns or advertising campaigns. And also, some of the basics like service communications, likes of OTPs, likes of confirmation of placing an order. You are surfing most of these like Zomatos of the world, or other food menus or shopping menus, like 10 minutes shopping, you use quick commerce, everything. Are these like afterthought, or brands are actually thinking in advance today?
So honestly, in my view, I mean, this is a very very new industry in India, and a lot of companies, lot of enterprises have actually started using this as a part of next level of business while bringing the multilingual space into picture in terms of communication. So there are certain use cases wherein we were also fortunate to get involved with the businesses, be it the e-com or be it the regulated industries like again the BFSI. So the needs are there. They are looking after this multilingual space. At the same time, there are some hit cases as well. So I'll talk about a couple of cases. Like we are currently working with one of the insurance tech companies, right? So they have actually seen a growth of about 15%. So the kind of use case what they have done is particularly lead to product kind of marketing activity, wherein they are actually the AI agents are actually shooting the calls and then taking generating the leads for the enterprises, and that's where their business and their leads started getting improvised. So this is one of the use cases. Another use case wherein we are working with one of the e-commerce industries. Their use case is more about taking the product description and taking their product details into multilingual, and that's where their shopping cart has actually increased by almost 20%. So this is the power of multilingual. The third case could be again the NBFCs, because we are working with NBFCs very very closely. So their need is more about throwing the multilingual reminder calls, be it the EMI collections or be it timely payment. So that's where their collection journey has also increased by up to 25%. So these are the very very important KPIs for any of the tech enabled companies who have actually started using the multilingual content as a second baseline, and that's the kind of traction what they have already started observing. So I think we are on the right pace, and the kind of use cases what we have already started solving with these of the regulated enterprises are very very important for their business. I mean, not only for us but for their business as a whole as well.
True, true. So when we think of language translation, the first thing that comes in mind is a lot of people who are translators and make a living with translation, sitting in a large office and translating continuously. So that is, I guess, is an old era, right? We are
Absolutely.
no more on the same era of human translation. So this is a good segue. We talked about tech enabled. Can you share a brief overview in terms of how technology is transforming, particularly AI and ML is transforming this space?
So I think so. Let me talk about the kind of challenges what every business faces while onboarding or taking the multilingual space as a second line of business. So the kind of challenges is obviously number one is the scalability. They have to be very sure that how they are going to scale their business, because there are like hundreds of journeys what they have to implement at the same time if they talk about the multilingual space, right? So be it the websites or their landing pages or the mobile application or the unified communications, or even taking their call centers into multilingual. So there are a lot of journeys what they have to emphasize on. So scalability is something they should definitely look up to. Second part is more about the tonality and the contextual accuracy. So they have to be very sure that whatever AI they are actually implementing should be catching up with the kind of tones what a individual brand is using while communicating with their end customers. At the same time, if we talk about the AI, so we cannot be 100% dependent on AI, that the AI can actually give you the 100% result. So they have to be very
So when you
accurate.
say 100% results, you mean accuracy?
Absolutely, contextual accuracy is what I mean.
Yeah, because there is a tendency of LLMs to hallucinate, and that's the context we are, I guess, saying.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. So they have to be very sure that the context is not losing, and the brands are able to maintain the tone at the same time. The contextual translation is actually playing a very vital role, because if the fundamental flavor is actually lost from the kind of content which is translated, then there is no use of multilingual content. So these are the particular things. At the same time, a brand has to be very specific about talking and specific about the compliance risk. So they have to be observant that okay, the content is translated, then whether it falls under the RBI or the GDPR compliance or no. So they have to be very observant about those parts. At the same time, while selecting any kind of agency, cost and time obviously matters a lot, and India being a very cost sensitive industry, so cost plays a vital role. So I think cost and time wise, they have to be decisive that okay, if they even if they are paying some premium on the cost, whether they are getting the kind of results what they are expecting, and whether they are able to get the kind of scale what they are expecting, or they are happy just walk around with the manual translators who are just be available next door. But then the kind of the accuracy, the kind of speed which is actually required will not be these brands will be able to manage or no. So these are the critical things what they have to particularly define. And at last, they also have to be decisive that whatever tech they are actually adopting, whether that tech can be implemented within their workflows or no. So these are the critical things what a brand should follow while looking for any kind of agency, or while even thinking of taking all of their journeys into multilingual way.
Got it. So let's take a few specific example of specific use cases. Can you highlight use cases both in text to text space as well as text to speech or speech to text? All of these areas. Can you probably take one or two example for each of these areas where brands can consider while they're just getting started on multilingual communications?
Absolutely.
Is communication is the only use case, or are there any other use cases in?
Absolutely. So, I mean, while any brand plans to go multilingual, so they should actually start with some of the critical fundamental things which are directly related and impacting their revenues. Because at the end of the day, every business is actually first going to their board and taking the kind of approvals that they want to take the journeys into multilingual. And the first question they actually get is what is the revenue impact. So I think before they deep dive into the multilingual space, they first have to decide that what are the journeys which are directly impacting their revenue, so that the ROI can be justified to the board. So in terms of in terms of the kind of journeys what they can think of, number one is obviously a no brainer, which is a website and a mobile application wherein all of their customers are actually visiting and understanding about the business before they are actually generating the lead, and then started working with a particular brand. So website and mobile application is one of the journeys what they can look after. Second is, so how I'm doing it is that I have actually defined all these things into a pre-sale and post-sale activities. If we talk about the pre-sale, which is more about directly related to the revenue, website and mobile application is one of the journeys, and second could be again throwing the AI agentic calls to the people to get the to understand their needs, to get their interest, and that's where leads get multiplied and funnel becomes bigger. The second part is the post-sale activity, wherein the leads, the kind of customers what we already have, the businesses are already working with those kind of customers. So what is next required is to how to upsell and cross-sell to them. So again, the ticketing system can be arranged so that if they are facing any kind of challenge, so they should be able to raise a ticket, or they can directly call to a customer care and then talking about the kind of problems what they are facing in their local language, obviously, because customer experience and customer and making a customer understandable by a brand is important, and that's where actually the what we call the trust actually comes from a customer, and that's
True.
where,
Trust and loyalty, right?
loyalty. Yeah. So
Yeah.
these are the things where where a business actually take their journeys into multilingual by dividing it into a pre-sale and post-sale activities.
Understood. So before we wrap up the session, there's one more point I wanted to discuss, which is so you referred that the ROI, right? So how should business measure the ROI? What should be the KPIs for measuring the ROI? Are there any examples that you can think of that currently business are using?
So as I said that if a business have to, I'll actually take a couple of examples talking about a couple of industries where we are already working. So number one is again the insurance tech. As I said that with the insurance tech, what how they are actually using or the kind of problem what they are solving is particularly increasing their funnel size so that the leads to capitalizing can actually get increased. So they have already seen
So it leads to conversion ratio increases, the
absolutely. So
percentage
they
increases.
yeah, so they have already seen this improvement by almost 15% if we talk about the insurance tech companies. At the same time, with the e-commerce, their cart size has actually increased by 20% by simply adopting the multilingual product description and the product detailing part. So these are the typical things. At the same time, with the NBFCs also who have already seen your collection has actually improved by almost 25% when they actually started throwing the calls, reminder calls, and the payment collection calls to their tier one, tier two customers. So these are the very typical and critical KPIs for any business to actually directly related to the kind of ROIs what they are working on. If they are not doing, it's not that their business is going for a toss, but at the same time, if they actually see the kind of hit cases what we already have with the customers, so if they take a next step while adopting a multilingual space, their KPIs have actually their KPI will actually starts improvising. So that's
Understood.
the power what we are bringing on table. So at last, I would actually want to highlight one very important thing. What I actually believe is multilingual is not just for the communication. It is becoming a moat now.
Hmm.
So this is what we are building, and this is what the brands have to believe that if they adopt the multilingual space, they are not just playing on the cost, but they are actually bringing the ROI on the table. It will not be an immediate thing, but it will start impacting their KPI slowly and steadily.
Understood. Yeah. No, this is very helpful. So before wrapping up this, essentially what we are saying is that a multilingual way of communicating and connecting and engaging with audience for brands is relatively new and nascent, and we are still probably at the beginning of this curve, which is
Absolutely.
going to go transformationally high. Second is technology is enabling this trend and giving the leverage of scale, speed, and also the ability to sort of think multilingual native rather than thinking this as an afterthought, as you mentioned
Yeah.
at the end, right? That it is becoming a moat now. And I think the last part where we will continue to discuss are various use cases that we see are emerging, or probably where you see that your clients are actually using. And we will also continue to discuss some of the success stories that they see, whether it is in terms of conversion, funnel performance improvement, whether they see a better CSAT or an NPS score in the customer service and customer support side, or whether it is basically increasing the brand loyalty or trust by seeing that you have return customers, you have customers who are not, basically the overall customer life cycle value is increasing, right? Fantastic. So, with that, Nakul, let's wrap up this particular episode of our show. We'll come back with newer areas to discuss. There are plenty of areas that we will be exploring. For the viewers, this is focused at an opportunity for you to think how to engage and communicate with your audience in their language. So, essentially, the customer first, and as Nakul mentioned, the customer experience first. Language is a great way to engage and deliver on the promise of the customer experience that your brand is propagating or evangelizing through your campaigns. With that, we take a break. Thank you, Nakul, for your inputs and insights for this episode.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye.